Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's January 29th, 2025. Time to do a little more snow blowing today. Just firing up Optimus Maximus here. Turn on the PTO. Let it run for a few seconds here. Start turning up the RPM, son. Mirrors look good. So we've had snow the last couple of days, but not a lot at a time. And yesterday, I think we had just a few inches of snow. And so I didn't snow blow yesterday. I think we had 1 to 2 inches, I think, I'm guessing. And so I stayed inside yesterday and worked at the computer all day. But then last night it started snowing, and I think we got a couple of inches last night. But trying to avoid these spots where I dug in before and got all the rocks up. And the machine is still pretty cold right now. I got the heater on, and I'm looking forward to some warmth here. But the temperature's close to freezing. So, and I think it's going to get above freezing sometime today. But and sometime we went from the 20s, I guess at about midnight last night, low 20s, to about 34 or 35 early this morning, probably around 4 o'clock this morning. And when I came out at probably about 5, it was like raining out here. Now it's sort of a wet snow right now. I'm not sure what the temperature is. It seems to be jumping around, but the air was definitely warmer earlier this morning. And that really made this snow that's just like slush, not slush, but it's really a wet snow. Very heavy snow. So if we're going to have a warm up, and we're supposed to get, I wasn't really paying attention this morning with it when the local weather man, meteorologist, told us about the weather. Thea's super interested in knowing what's going on with the weather. I just sort of play it bit by bit as the days go on. But I guess we're supposed to get several inches either tonight or tomorrow. So with this being such heavy, wet stuff, it could turn into an ice sheet. Day before yesterday, we had some sun out, and it was real close to freezing temperatures. So I decided what I do is go outside, go out back, and clean the solar panels off. So that's what I did. I went out and got our extendable handle shovel. Most people use them to shovel off their roofs. And I use it for one of the tools that I use for cleaning off the solar panels. Actually, I'm gonna do this one more time here. And so I cleaned off the solar panels, and the snow's pretty deep out there. But I'll tell you, interestingly enough, I'm gonna start turning. Interestingly enough, the snow was very compacted. Once you get down about a foot and a half, I could walk right on top. Every once in a while I'd break through with my feet, but it was really compact, so I wasn't going right up to my waist like I could have. But I hadn't cleaned the solar panels off this year. And what had happened was the snow, bear with me here, the snow gets to the point where when you get a little bit of warmth, the snow will sort of scoot its way down the slope of the solar panels on a rack system. So our solar panels are on a rack system. Yeah, this is kind of icy underneath here. I'm slipping some. So, so I ended up being able to get the solar panels cleaned off. That worked out. Man, this is just slush coming out of the chute right now. It's snow that's about 80% water. And this is the time I do not want to shear pin when it's like this, because it can be like a block of ice in the chute. So anyways, I got the solar panels cleaned off. You end up having to use that shovel to push underneath the solar panels that are on a rack. And I'm really happy we installed them on a rack-mounted system. That way we can get all the benefits of the sun exposure all summer long during the daytime. It really, really worked out well, as opposed to putting them on our roof. Because as you can see ahead of us here, we got the big trees and all, and they cast some shade onto that would be casting a lot of shade onto the solar panels, which would make them much less efficient. So we picked a spot out back when we installed the solar panels. That was in 2012, the first set of solar panels we put up, and chose a spot that we get as much sun exposure and the least amount of shading as possible. And those solar panels are N-phase, well, the system is an N-phase system that a friend of ours from Skyline Solar, so if you're in this neck of the woods and you're looking for somebody who's really honest, a good worker, small business owner, really good guy, he installed it and then came back and installed our second set of the solar array as well. This is going to be slicker. She's going to have to be wearing her spikes all the time out here now. So, and we had some real high winds the other day as well. So, sorry, I keep jumping around when I'm discussing things. So, by having the rack mount system, if I ever have any damage to my roof or whatever, it isn't going to affect the solar panels. And so I don't have to worry about every 25 years or 30 years having to take the solar panels off and in order to re-roof the house or change the shingles on. And this is our forever home. Starting to warm up some in here now. This is really wet snow. So that's that. So yesterday it was during the winter months. I spent a lot of hours. All year round, I spent a few hours every morning working at the, in the office, basically working at the computer. And during the winter months, I'm doing major planning, spreadsheets for our investments, for plans of everything. A lot of time working on these things, including our estate plans and future plans, all those sorts of things. And so I'd set aside all day yesterday to work in the office and all. And Thea had this, now Thea's always cooking all different casseroles and different delicious meals, and she'll often cook up a couple of casseroles in one day, and that'll get us for a few nights during the week to have break up different meals and all during the week, and all organic, and we are plant-based. Not that anybody needs to follow our lifestyle, but we grow lots of food here on our property, and for health reasons we elected to go plant-based. And but every once in a while we'll have something that's sort of a treat, sort of like people's Thanksgiving and all, or a Christmas meal. And so we have this tofu turkey, and we've tried a whole bunch of different ones over the years, and most of which I don't care for whatsoever. But there's one that we do like, and so when it goes on sale, Thea picks up several of them, and so we keep those in one of our freezers. And so she had been planning. She's always planning a few days ahead of time what we're going to eat each day, what desserts we're going to have. Lots of chocolate chip cookies, but what dessert we're going to have and all that. And so she had planned yesterday we're going to have the tofu turkey and all. And so I was up there working in the office, and she had to go do a delivery to the post office of some books. Had to go to Walmart, probably Tractor Supply, Catholic Charities. She had several things she was going to do. We had a whole bunch of donations, a box full of donations for Catholic Charities and all. And so she took off, and I'm up there working in the office, and I start to smell the tofu turkey, which smells delicious. And I'm thinking, okay, that's good. And one thing about me is I'm really focused on what I'm doing when I'm working. Try not to suck up any of these branches that snapped off here in the windstorm. So I'm up there in my office, and Thea's gone for a while now, and I said, boy, it smells like she's burning it some. So I thought, oh, she has the tofu turkey in the oven, and there's probably something that probably spilt. You know how if you're doing a lot of casseroles or whatever in the oven, sometimes it'll overflow a little bit. It'll get in the base of the oven, and that'll burn right up to a crisp. So I could smell something burning some. But Thea's an excellent cook, and she's gone, so I'm not paying any attention. Well, it's probably an hour. It might only be 45 minutes later now. And my alarms go off in my head and say, no, something's wrong. Something's burning badly. And so I go downstairs, go into the kitchen, and I'm checking everything out on the way down. I'm always, looking for anything that can go wrong. If my sensors did indicate that there's potentially a crisis going on, I'm looking around at everything. Is there anything that's catching on fire? I mean, we have a wood burning stove. I mean, that was fine. Could always be an electrical fire with, you got pets. Anything can happen. So I'm scanning as I'm going. I'm rushing, but I'm not racing. Because the smoke as I get downstairs, and I mean, it had been billowing up as I got into the hall, just sucking into some of this deeper pile here. So as I'm going down, it's becoming much more apparent that something is, it's not like an electrical fire where you smell the petroleum-based, plastic products. But I'm still scanning. I get into the kitchen. I open up the oven door, and nothing's on. The tofu turkey isn't in the oven. And so Anthea's not home. And so I go over and I immediately scan the kitchen. And I said, well, let me check the microwave. The microwave was off. And but there it was inside the microwave, and you could see this thing that looked like like a rock. Black on the bottom, brown on the top. And I said, okay, there's our culprit. And I thought to myself, is she trying to bake this in the microwave? And so I took it, and I opened up the kitchen window, opened up the doors in the house, went upstairs, opened the bathroom windows, turned on the vents, and I mean it is smoky in there, and it has that nasty burnt smell. So I had to get the air cleaned out as best as I could, not necessarily just for me, but with Thea's lungs. She's got some significant scarring in her lungs that could easily be exasperated by the smoke, the irritation from the smoke. So I decided, well, we'll get everything open. Now it's snowing, so the snow's blowing right into the living room. I mean, it's immediately melting because I've got the wood-burning stove on, our beautiful Yodel stove. And so that's working out okay. But it is, well, there's going to always be a little bit of that tofu turkey left in that household smell. So I wasn't sure just how the heck that had happened. And but the microwave was off at that time. And so I'm going to turn around and head up front. So I'm going to turn this temperature down, open a window. Angle this deflector down so. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. See if there's branches and trees down all over the place, I know. Okay, that's a little bit too low. Still a little bit too low. Okay, I think we're okay right there for now. So then shortly thereafter, Thea came home. And of course, as she's pulling down the driveway, she sees the front door wide open. And she gets in the house, the living room doors are wide open. Snow's coming in to the living room. And all. And she's wondering, well, what the hell's going on? And so I we had our discussion. I said, well, your tofu turkey burned up in the microwave. She's thinking, well, how the heck did that happen? Well, the instructions for prepping the tofu turkey was, since it came out of the freezer, it needed 4 to 5 minutes of defrosting, I guess. I'm not positive the details, but 4 to 5 minutes of defrosting. And somehow that got relayed to 50 minutes in the microwave. So that whole time I was at the computer working, that puppy was just turning into a block of concrete, bicolored, black on the bottom. So who knows? So life is never boring, let me tell you that. It's an exciting life we live. You know, I'm one of those hyper-vigilant people that when an alarm goes off, you know, I tend to take action and get after whatever the situation is. And like in our house, when we build it, it's got a sprinkler system in it. Every room, multiple sprinkler heads in there, and that was a real big deal, trying to get an insurance carrier to, back in the early 80s, to have a residence. There's all sorts of hassle, and we ended up having to pay extra for having a sprinkler system in our home. You would have thought that I'd get some credit, a reduced price for the sprinkler system, but no. And we have a reservoir upstairs, so if ever the power went out, our preheat tank, which I've been over in videos before, so on our 3rd floor of our house is our hot water heater. The opposite of what most people have. And that hot water heater, all right, now I'm going to angle this chute up higher now. There goes the plow. The hot water heaters on our 3rd floor, and so are the preheat tanks or reservoirs. So I got 2 70-gallon tanks. They're on the 3rd floor. So if we ever lose power or the well runs dry, there's always 140 gallons of water that can gravity feed the sprinkler heads, which are all below that. There's a couple that are above that, but that can feed all of the sprinkler heads to hopefully douse down any fire that occurs in our house. Well, they have a dual function as well. Since they're on the 3rd floor of the house, as heat rises in the house, the groundwater that comes from our well that gets pumped to our 3rd floor to fill those preheat tanks, well, that temperature, the room temperature, raises the temperature of the water in the preheat tanks to the temperature that's at our 3rd floor, which is upper 70s to 80 degrees. And the secondary advantage to that is that we fill our hot water heater out of those preheat tanks. So if we have our hot water set at 125 degrees Fahrenheit, the hot water heater only has to raise the temperature of the water from about 80 degrees to 125, and that takes much less energy since we use electric heaters. So multiple functions for a single thing. So I guess I was saying, and I didn't finish my, as usual with me, finish my comments on how this all ties in with the fire and all. You know, as I'm coming down, I'm remembering exactly where the fire extinguishers are. The sprinkler system, I don't want the sprinkler system to go off if it doesn't have to, so I want to pre-extinguish any fires. And so years ago, so what got me into this whole putting a sprinkler system in, and I designed the system that I put in when we built the house. And years ago, Thea and I had the benefit when we were working at Miller making beer cans for Miller Brewing Company, a separate factory. We didn't actually work in the brewery. We worked in a canning factory. And so one of the great benefits of that was we had fire brigades. So the shifts you work in that place, you'd work 12-hour shifts, 3 days on, 3 days off, 4 days on, 4 days off, and you got to have lots of overtime if you wanted it as well. So that really worked out well. That gave us time to do building and all that. That really worked out great. But we both were volunteers for the fire brigade. And of course, when you're working with huge ovens and all, we'd have fires from time to time. So as a result of being in the fire brigade, we had opportunities to train firefighting. We went to firefighting schools about every year at Alcan Aluminum. Now, Alcan had their own volunteer fire department, and they had a training school there that even fire companies would come and train there. Niagara Mohawk would come and train there. You know, lots of anybody who had volunteer fire departments, you'd go there and you get professional training. And we had all the first aid and life support training and all that. But you know, I enjoyed it so much. I went ahead and so each shift had lieutenants and that would organize and be in charge of the strategies for fighting the fires. And we didn't have that many fires, but we had a few that I was involved in when I was working there. And it never, I mean, we might be down, the company, the lines might be down for a couple of hours, but that was about it. Because we always, you know, we'd be alerted when a fire would start. And I remember one fire, I was working nights at the time, and I was working overtime on another shift. But I was up, it's before I was a forklift operator. I'm gonna open up the other window over here now too. And branch just came shooting out of there. And I was up working at one of the stations where all of the aluminum cans, before they get painted, they got punched out and trimmed to their appropriate height before they get a coating on the inside of the can and before they get the label painted on the outside of it at all. And then they would, from there, go just probably less than 50 feet from me, go into a nice long oven because they get coated downstairs and come up and go right back. I was up on a mezzanine. And these factories are loud. I mean, really loud. You got tools and dies and big machines. compressing and forming beer cans out of a roll of aluminum, big, massive rolls of aluminum. And so it's really loud in there, and you're wearing your peacekeepers, you got your hard hats, your safety glasses and all. And really it's a terribly boring job. I mean, really boring. And so I'm doing my job, taking care of the area there, and all of a sudden, I felt a new sound coming, and it was a roaring sound, like a jet engine. Now, in a loud factory, a jet engine doesn't sound all that much louder than everything else, but it was a different sound. And when I turned around and I looked behind me, because I'm straightening up cans, trying to get them so that they end up going down into a chute to feed the printer, I looked around, and the chimney from the furnace behind me, which the burner was closest to me, that thing was just to the point where the metal was about to melt. I'm talking like a cherry glowing, bright cherry glowing, and almost to the point where you could see through the metal. So, and we had our own little phone system that you could either call someone, call a different station, or you can just make a big announcement over the PA. So I hit the fire alarm and announced where the fire was. Now these guys, most of the guys there from this other shift, so they would be on the opposite ends of the week that we were on. So we had crews A, B, C, and D, and I was on B crew, which was nights one half of the week, and this was D crew, which was nights the other half of the week, and they all have their pecking order and the personalities everyone does. But my personality is one of those personalities. I didn't give a damn that I wasn't the lieutenant on that crew. I knew I needed to take charge right away and all, so I announced the fire, did it. The guys were all getting set. Some of them were getting the hoses, getting everything all set. Some of them were getting the big, massive fire extinguisher, trying to get that one. I think we had one already up on the second mezzanine. And but there were fire extinguishers right next to the cherry. So I had shut down the blower, but everything, I mean, all of the inks and the lacquers that are in the cans are very flammable. And when you're doing maintenance work, if there's excess grease in there, well, some of these petroleum-based products just took right off inside of the chute. And it didn't matter that I had shut off I'll tell you this, the sound of this fan belt is driving me nuts. But I'm keeping an eye on the temperature here, making sure the water pump's still working. Okay, back to the story. Isn't this interesting story time? I haven't thought about this in years, except for yesterday when I was heading down to put out the tofu. So I grabbed the fire extinguishers, and there's a port that you can open for cleaning out the chutes, and the exhaust chute, like a chimney, but these are really big chimneys, was ripping on fire. And I knew if I opened that door, it was just going to feed more air to the system. So I had 2 extinguishers ready to rip. And now so fire extinguishers understanding fire extinguishers is really important. And so not just the types of fire extinguishers and the types that they can be used, and these were ABC fire extinguishers. But what I wanted to do was see if I could stifle the flame. We already had the heat, we had the fuel, And I knew I was going to open up the door, which would introduce potentially introduce more oxygen coming into it, because we had one rip-roaring fire going. But I thought if I could extinguish the flame itself and then close that chute back up, it might work out. So that was my plan. This is all, like very rapid thinking on my part. And the snow's blowing in here. So I opened the chute, blasted both of those fire extinguishers in there going. First, the flames were coming right out toward me. And, but within a few seconds, probably 2 seconds, the flames were no longer coming out at me because I had discharged the first one in. So all of the material that was down below in the lower part of the, which really where the fire actually got ignited, was below the mezzanine floor. And I wanted to keep this from working its way into the whole oven and and burning and going up and starting a fire up on the roof. So I discharged that first fire extinguisher. Got to pay attention what I'm doing here. And I had the other one right next to it. Fortunately, both fire extinguishers, and the thing I was going to say before is I think it's like every month or 3 months we had the service come in and redo each one of our fire extinguishers. So many people, you buy a fire extinguisher and think that that fire extinguisher is going to put out a fire 10 years after you bought it, and it may not work at all, even though you never used it, it was brand new when you bought it. So, but one of the things, we had an agreement or a contract with the company, I don't remember their name, that would come and take care of, service all of our fire extinguishers, checking to see if they needed to be recharged, make sure that, when you're a big factory like this, the powdery material can get turned into a cake at the bottom of the fire extinguisher as well, and it may not work, function well. So anyways, both of these, I had really high confidence that these fire extinguishers were going to go. Second one, pulled the pin, shot it up to go up the chute, and it worked beautifully. I was feeling really proud of myself at that point. Because that fire could have put us down, for several days or a week. And I sure as heck did not want to see that happen. And so, by the time the rest of the guys got there, it was just the follow-up work. When you have a fire, there's a whole series of steps you have to go through, and then the maintenance. Once we know that everything's completely extinguished, then maintenance takes over at that point. Well, there's an assessment done as well, which I wasn't responsible for because I was from the other end of the week. But we got awards or whatever. I remember the company was very appreciative that we got that fire out right away, and it was one of those really, really nice moments in my life. But during those, the thing that was so important was, I talk about all the different forms of investment. Gotta turn these four-ways on now. So, one of the forms of investment that I'm always talking about is experiential capital. And I was smart enough as a young man to take advantage of the free training for fire brigade and first aid and all those things that we had going on. Really, really important aspects in my life. And it really helped me to mature as a young man as well. So now I'm trying to get up close to the fire hydrant here again without shearing a pin. My neighbor here, he keeps pushing the snow up there. So, anyways, so I think I completed this story. I'm focusing on what I'm doing here with the winged material here by the side of the road. So as a result of that experiential capital that I had with going to the fire school training sessions, I don't know, we had fire drills regularly as well. You know, even if there wasn't a fire, we'd be putting out fires that we'd start. We'd put out cars, we'd put out small buildings. Nothing huge, but it gave you an idea of what fire can do. And of course you saw all the videos, the movies that everyone would share about it. Trying to make sure I don't hit my light fixture over there. So taking every opportunity, so that experiential capital that I gained from being a volunteer at the company that I work for, well, that was an amazing opportunity for me. Trying to decide on the height of this stuff. Going real slow here. So all that training really helped me build my own self-esteem. It gave me a working knowledge of how fires actually start. And so, you know, like, you need three components in order to have a fire. You need heat. You definitely need heat. You need fuel. And you need oxygen. So people sometimes wonder, well, you need a flame to start it. Well, no, you don't need a flame. Compost can ignite. Improperly managed wood chip piles could ignite. Lightning can start it, you know, an electrical discharge can start a fire. So you don't actually need a flame to start a fire, but if you know you need all three of those in order to have a fire continue, you know, you can try and reduce the fuel that's there, you can reduce the heat that's there, and various different means of doing that, or you can starve it of oxygen. And so you use the appropriate application for the mechanism of the fire that's occurring. I hope that makes sense. So it's like starting a wood stove fire. Well, if you understand it, and it took me years to get to the point where I was good at this, you know, lighting one little fire starter that's the size of a makeup cotton swab that has wax in it. Well, That's enough to start the fire. There's no adjusting dampers on the wood stove. There's no coming back and getting different layers. You just fill it right up the first time. And it can work out just beautifully. Keeping an eye out in case any vehicles come shooting up behind me here. Open this window up again. So fortunately we didn't have any fires yesterday, but I've seen some real doozy fires in my life. And you know, one of the scariest fires that there are, now I never had to fight a forest fire, but there's a couple of times where I've had to fight fires that were like brush fires that took off over, you know, an area of a field and into the woods some, not really a forested area. And I'll tell you, those are scary fires because it could be a dead calm day, and once that fire gets going under the right conditions, that will just suck in the air, and that baby will take off like crazy. Sort of like what I experienced, as I told you about when I worked at Miller, that chimney fire. I mean, that fire got so hot and it had enough fuel inside of there, enough material like creosote and lacquer materials that were built up over a period of time, and those fuel sources were there, and it just started creating a feeding draft from the far end of the oven, sucking the air back to where the beginning of the oven actually is, where the ignition source was, which would pump the heat to the rest of the oven. We're talking, I don't know how many feet it was. This oven's probably 60, 80 feet long, I'm guessing. It's been so many years since I was there, so many decades ago. But the point is that once a fire gets started, if there's enough fuel, it will create enough airflow that'll provide adequate oxygen, especially if you're outside. Those winds will kick up. Like in California, they had those really high winds, but you have on the sides of large hills and mountains, you have a phenomena where where the air moves up one side and down the other side. And that's why you'll see soaring birds. That's why you'll see the eagles and other birds. Bear with me 1 second here. This is such heavy, wet stuff here. You see them effortlessly soaring along the sides of the mountains. And if you're in a mountainous area and you've got lots of fuel from a result of droughts and a forest, and the forest floor hasn't been managed. And I wrote an article on mechanisms that's on our website, mindfullivingsanctuary.com. I believe I posted the article on that, on how to increase the moisture content in the soil in those areas and create fire breaks and all. And I wrote an article on the building materials that the people should wisely be considering instead of using wood products, and landscaping. I covered landscaping as well, and I covered you know, fire resources, firefighting resources on their properties to help extinguish when a forest fire is nearby and an ember falls on their roof or in their lawn or whatever it may be. Yeah, this is real heavy, wet stuff here. Okay, I'm back. Just got a camera in my pocket too. Right, there's my gloves. It is a windy day out there right now. So I had this big pile of slush in front of me here now. So I'm trying to knock some of this, feed this into the system here. Have to go a bit slower. Winds are coming out of the west the way they usually do, but they're getting broke by our fence over here right now, so that's pretty good. So I guess I was saying, I wrote a couple articles on our website about things that I would recommend if somebody were wanting to rebuild or remodel or build a new place in a fire-prone zone like they experience in California or in many other places as well. I have my thoughts about insurance. I think the best insurance you can have is being preparedness yourself. Insurance companies are probably going to give you one hell of a time trying to get reimbursed for damages. You have to document every single thing, every room, know every item that's in the room, make sure your policy is going to cover all of the items. Do you have a policy that's going to cover your being able to stay in a different dwelling? You know, is it a second home like many of the rich people there had? Those were second homes that they had. And how does the insurance company deal with if it's not your primary residence? Are they going to provide the same resources? So it's insurance companies. Insurance policies are a necessary evil, but I think the most important insurance that you can have is being prepared yourself. And certainly, as we get older and less capable, that poses more issues. Man, this is really wet stuff. I'm just taking a little less off of the top here. I don't want to take too darn much off. And I don't want to make this slick because if it warms up some and then freezes, we can have an ice skating rink out here. I did get a comment, so my most recent video that I posted was, ordering the new launch series Model Y from Tesla. And I understand there's lots of people who hate or are completely disgusted by Elon Musk due to the information that they believe is true. And I'm not going to get into any of that right now, but the comment that I got when I created the video about about ordering the Model Y, because I get people who have lots of questions. Like one of the questions, all right, so I should finish this statement first. So the comment that I got was, you know, something to the fact that I actually had uploaded the video the first time, and I had some music that was copyrighted music, so I had to take that video down. But within a few minutes of me uploading it, someone had commented, you know, that they were disappointed in me for why didn't I buy an American-made car. And you know, I've dealt with this question so many times over the years. I just think that everybody knows by now that Tesla is the most American-made car in the United States. Not Ford, not GM, certainly not any of the Stellantis ones. You know, people, I guess they just don't check to see where the vehicles are being made. And it isn't just the vehicle being made. You have to think about the components to the vehicle and where they come, where are the components manufactured. And Tesla's vertically integrated, where a lot of their components are made by them, by their factories. But they do have to buy components. You know, they're not like Ford or GM. They buy their seats and all their computers from resources in China and Korea. You know, their seats, Tesla makes their own seats. You know, no other manufacturer does that. But if you go to cars.com, and I put a link to that in the description of the video when I uploaded it, so you can go and see, you know, which vehicles. So Tesla, followed by Rivian, and then there are a couple other manufacturers that do it. But the ones that everybody think are American made, just because parts of them are assembled here in the States, most of their parts, most of the materials, and most of the assembly is not done in the United States. So I realize that so many people just aren't familiar with these facts. There's so much misinformation that can be easily, the correct information is easily available this day and age by reputable sources. But we've turned into a society, even people my age fall victim for all the clicks and all the information, because, you know, like they used to say, if it bleeds, it leads. Well, that's so true. So getting rather salacious or like something that sounds like criminal activity, or somebody's screwing the end user over, well, that gets lots of attention. And often they'll leave the accurate information, or the headline will be completely false, but someplace buried in their article, they'll try to keep from getting sued by actually covering the information. But people this day and age, for the most part, are pretty lazy. And that's the thing where I talk about personal empowerment. You know, it's all about us taking responsibility for our own lives, learning how to get accurate information, how to identify misleading information. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the article on critical thinking that's posted on our website, mindfullivingsanctuary.com. And that's the reason why I wrote the article on logical fallacies, which is posted on mindfullivingsanctuary.com. So that people can at least be aware of that there are means of of getting accurate information without a lot of extra work. But just don't be lazy and just believe the gossip that's completely misinformation that you see at your favorite sources. I met a couple of really nice gentlemen who installed our washer and dryer, and I think one of the comments the Teslas seemed pretty interesting. His son seemed to have more information about Teslas, but it's like thinking that the batteries you have a battery replaced in 10 years or 100,000 miles. And it's so easy to go online and look at the people who've had their vehicles and they professionally drive their vehicles for hundreds of thousands of miles and see what had to be replaced, what needed. Now, have Tesla batteries had to be replaced? Yes. So if you're a business person whose job it is to man, this stuff is just pushing forward the snow here. Whose job it is, actually I'm going to switch this over here. Let's see if this will work out. Whose job it is to make these trips constantly, and they're never charging at home, and they're charging their car with a lithium-ion battery, not the lithium iron phosphate batteries, but one of the like the batteries that we have in our Model Y. If you go to a supercharger and you're draining the battery way down because you're a business person, just supercharging your vehicle a couple times a day because you're putting thousands of miles a week on your car, and you're not charging at home, and you're just doing the fastest charging possible, well, yeah, you might only get a couple 100,000 miles out of your battery before it gets degraded to the point where it's not going to be as efficient for you for your business. Now that battery might be plenty efficient enough. Just switch this again. Might be plenty efficient enough for being a backup source for your home or reselling it for someone else. But if you're someone like me that just charges your battery at home and you're not relying on a supercharger, and we only charge it to 80%, well then your battery is going to last a lot longer. So it's how you take care of your supplies. And those batteries can all be repurposed, like I mentioned. If I have one of the batteries, one of my batteries go bad and I have to have it replaced, I'm going to do my damnedest. I'll pay extra money to keep the battery because, like, let's say the battery in the Cybertruck, well, that's equivalent, the size of that battery is equivalent to 9 power walls. And a power wall is a 13 kilowatt backup system that people use to back up their homes. So if used properly, these batteries can be repurposed, can have very long lifetimes. Your car's going to fall apart before you're going to need a battery replacement, unless you're someone who's putting, I don't know, 100,000 miles a year on your car and you're just going to superchargers. So in three years, maybe 4 years, you're probably going to have that battery replaced in order to maintain the same range. The battery will still be good, you just won't have the same range. Now our battery has degraded about 2% over the last 4 years. but we only have about 35,000 miles on it. So we're not commuting back and forth to work every day in Syracuse like we used to do. You know, it's used every day. But for the average American, you'll want a different vehicle before the battery is no longer useful for you. And of course, let's say the battery cells go bad, and that battery isn't good as a whole for a backup system. Well, then it gets recycled, and they're able to extract. Oh gosh, got to think of his name right now. J.B. Straub, who was one of the founders, who was one of the principal people with Elon working at Tesla in the initial years. And he started his own company, Red Bank, and so it's J.B. Straub, Red Bank, and you can look that up online and look at his recycling systems. So he's taking batteries, not just from cars and all, and Tesla recycles their batteries as well. But J.B. Straub, he's got a career now out of getting about 90% of the components, and it may be more than that now, so that we're not needing to do more mining of the batteries. And he could sell that to the battery manufacturers, sell it right back to them, so they make another set of batteries, so it's not wasted. So technology has really come a long ways, and therefore the environmental impact is enhanced as the repurposing first is done, then the recycling is done over and over again. And you know, if your community isn't recycling, like we bring materials every month or two, every few months anyways, to our recycle center, to our transfer station, and we separate everything out so that we can have as little of an environmental impact as possible, as little of a negative environmental impact as possible by recycling. And I think I've mentioned before, you know, Thea and I were founding members of the environmental committee for our township back in the early 80s, when we were running the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. And back then, people thought we were foolish recycling and all. Nowadays, recycling has become more of a regular practice, I guess is the way I describe it. It's an acceptable practice. And where we had every obstacle back then against us to do the recycling. Now, depending on where you are, the recycling efforts might be half-assed, and things may not get recycled, even though you're doing your part. So that's where you got to do your own civic duties and make sure that the recycling places that you're dropping off your recyclables to is actually doing what they're being paid to do, recycling. And that may mean going to the town meetings, city council meetings. It may mean that you have to run for office locally. Those are some of those 10 forms of capital that I talk about, not just the experiential capital I talked about earlier. We all need to get involved. We all need to learn as much as we can do because we're all Americans, and this is our country, and we need to take care of it. We need to take care of it for the kids, not just for our kids or our grandkids or our great-grandkids, for multiple generations in the future. It's our responsibility. Now I'm preaching. So anyways, I don't know how I got off on that. Oh, misinformation about Tesla, that's what it was. So, when I'm moving this chute rapidly, I'm trying not to dump material either on solar panels or the little gazebos, or trying to direct the snow into the direction that I don't have to worry about the snow accumulation. And everything that I talk about investing in yourself, again, there's the article of the 10 forms of capital that you can invest in. It's not just money, financial capital. It's experiential capital, it's living capital. The living capital, you see our food and our food force, our gardens, the plants around us, our lives, our body, our intestinal microflora, the microbiome within us. If you have, like we have, the bioremediation canal systems, we have the pond systems, so that's living capital. You have material capital, your buildings, all the different things that we have, the stuff that we have. You have the cultural capital, the social capital, the spiritual capital, your physical capital, your health and well-being. And your intellectual capital, those things that you learn along the way. Snow's blowing in on that window now. So, investing in yourself, and I know I jump around with everything here, but the more that you get comfortable with investing in yourself, with me, my self-confidence increased over time. I knew that I could handle the challenges that I would be presented with at various different times, and it's made all the difference in my life. So I encourage everyone to learn to invest in yourself, to learn critical thinking skills, to learn about the logical fallacies. I put these articles up to share in the hopes that it can help people in some way. I think that they have a profoundly greater impact than my articles on composting or cover crops. Getting people to understand soil, though, is pretty darn important. Soil and water, the life givers. So anyways, this is getting loud. So our Cybertruck has full self-driving, but it's supervised. And I have to be observing and monitoring it every step of the way when we take that vehicle out. And the new car that we just ordered, the launch series of the Model Y, we ordered that with full self-driving. It comes with full self-driving, as I explained in that video. But I'll try to include a clip of the video, either at the end or now, of the vehicles. Once they're finished getting manufactured, they need to go out into staging areas and inspection areas, further inspection areas, or go to locations where they get loaded on to trucks to get transported and all to various locations. And now there's nobody piloting them, no one driving them. So there's a clip of the videos now with full self-driving, unsupervised. So the car's pulling out of the factory and driving themselves, either going through tunnels or, I'm gonna be real careful, I got my fuel tank here. Try to get as close to these. items as I can to do this job. Pull some of the snow down from the front deck door. So they drive themselves now. So I'll include that video clip in this. If you've been this far along, you could see it. It's just, we're living in amazing times now. And the future, if this seems amazing right now, the future is going to be so much cooler. Life is going to be so amazing for our children and all. And there won't be needs to go into war. You know, we've gone to war over oil or other precious materials so many times. As Americans, we could say, oh, it's for a different reason. But you know, there won't be these reasons to go to war. And there'll be the labor forces will be able to accomplish so much more with robotics and all. It's going to take some adjustment. There'll still be plenty of jobs for people, and you're just going to be have to be willing to learn. That's the thing I would say. And a lot of old farts my age don't want to learn more and all, but the old farts my age won't necessarily have to. They'll be able to retire, start up small businesses if they don't have enough to retire on comfortably. But life can be really exciting, and it will be these systems that are going to come out because of artificial intelligence and robotics are going to be enablers instead of taking away from opportunities for people to work and make a living. There's going to be many more opportunities to have wonderful working opportunities, ways of making money in the future. And it's going to take time to the point where we get to that. But again, that's why I'm always harping, invest in yourself. And if you just start slowly, you'll get confidence in yourself and feel that you can make money. I mean, look at me. I'm dyslexic. Didn't learn to read until I was 28 years old. And we have a bookstore. And I list books almost every day. Books in various media. And technology has allowed me to be able to do this. No one's doing it for me. I'm doing it myself. And nothing's going to change the fact that I'm dyslexic and I suck at reading. But with the tools that we have nowadays, things that we think that aren't possible, a lot of those things are just our lack of confidence in ourselves. And I understand that. Oh, geez, I just shared a pin, I think. Did I just share a pin? Oh. I gotta check. Dang it. Oh. Yes, I sheared a pin. So I think what I'll do is I'll end the video here, folks, and I'll fix the pin or replace the shear pin and get things done. I've done enough harping in this video, but I really do appreciate everyone who does watch and comment, and the thumbs up. Oh my God, I see more branches down up above here. Yeah, it's life. Anyways, folks, stay safe, take care, and have a wonderful day. I'm gonna try to. Bye-bye now.